Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 5 of the teachings of the Ascended Masters on fallen angels, Nephilim, and UFOs. I'm Joseph Macchio.
And I'm Stephen Macchio. And I believe in the end of the last episode, we were talking about a vortex of darkness that exists. And we were talking about Satan and his lieutenants, whereas most people think that Lucifer and Satan are the same person. So Lucifer fell, of course, and his legions and followers fell with him.
Yes.
But there's another passage there. You want to take that up from there where it says about the passage. There's other passages about mentioning Satan's name, about the dragon.
Well, if you think I should, I will.
Yeah, go ahead. Someone's got to do it.
Well, we have to realize that when Lucifer fell, of course, he had legions of followers under him, millions and millions of lieutenants. So again, what Stephen said, we have the word dragon, we have the word serpent, we have the word devil, and we have the word Satan, which simply means adversary. Mm-hmm. So again, they don't necessarily refer to the same being. So again, Satan, which is the name we use, was Lucifer's lieutenant right next to him. Mm-hmm. And again, we want to also reiterate the fact that the term earth in this passage can refer and does refer to the 4 planes of matter. Okay, what are the 4 planes of matter? The lower etheric plane, the mental plane, the astral plane, and the physical plane. And they correspond with the 4 lower bodies that we have. We have the physical body, we have the astral and emotional body, we have the mental body, and we have the etheric body, higher etheric and lower etheric. So when the fallen angels were cast out into the earth, it means the 4 planes of matter. But the trick is that the 4 planes of matter correspond to the 4 lower bodies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just want to throw that out to show the correspondence between the planes and the bodies and where these fallen angels wound up. Because we can't always say that they only wound up in the physical. They wound up in the mental, which is the mind. They wound up in the astral, which is the emotions. Mm-hmm. So,
but it's literally a plane of right. It's literally a plane of existence. So you could be there could be hundreds, thousands of fallen angels in the mental plane of existence. There could be hundreds and thousands of millions in the astral plane. They could be in the physical plane. Yes. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and also want to go back to the revelation that we're talking about through the Ascended Masters, that it is an absolute fact that Lucifer and Satan are 2 different beings.
Yeah, we have to keep repeating that because
they're separate individuals.
Yeah, we need
and Satan is the lieutenant of Lucifer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Now, isn't there another character thrown into the ring here? I think there's another character thrown in.
Where are you finding another character?
Well, there's another character right here, don't you? Serpent is another fallen angel.
On this page?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to mention, we're going to get to serpent, but I want to mention that when they were cast out, they were also cut off from all the higher spiritual realms. This is important.
Yeah.
In other words, they could not enter the higher etheric planes. They could not enter what is called the Buddhic plane. They could not enter the Nirvanic plane. They could never again, unless they changed, unless they said, yes, I'm submitting to the initiations. I want to balance the karma of rebellion. I want to get back where I was in serving. And I want to completely restore myself. Now, if they said that, that's different. But otherwise, they did not have the connection or the access to these higher planes.
So that you could see why you would be so angry, where you have access to, almost an infinite amount of areas, planes of consciousness of existence, going into states of consciousness that are higher than where you came from and beyond. And now you have what, 4 lousy planes. You could see how you would be extremely
four
rebellious
planes.
about this, right?
Right.
So they cut themselves off from this ability to attain these levels and other levels of divine consciousness because they're just not there anymore.
Yeah. The magnificent bliss of nirvana. Cut off from that.
They're not.
I just also want to say that in terms of, the actual universe itself, they also started to infect other people. So what the Luciferians did was they went from planet to planet and solar system to solar system and even to the galaxy known as Andromeda, spreading this rebellion, which actually spread like a cancer. And that's where we get the seeds of Lucifer and Satan that were spread. Now, what's the seeds? Well, they manifest. Remember, they took over the mental plane. Now, only in those people who were vulnerable to that would be taken over. Only those planets that were vulnerable already or lost the divine golden age, lost the divine contact, were susceptible to this invasion. So the Andromeda galaxy was also susceptible in a galaxy far, far away. And these seeds manifest as humanism, that you were talking about, as intellectualism, where the ego now is God. Ego becomes God. And you were explaining that before.
Right. And I think that when he was, on the move, he would cloak his rebellion in a very appealing way. Very appealing to the people. When you come with a brilliant intellectual argument, you could see people going, well, he's got a point there. And Lucifer and the fallen ones, conducted wars of liberation. That you're being liberated from, your karmic condition. I mean, you can just see it where someone like that could make fun of the poor soul who's working on their karma, trying to balance their karma. They're trying to get soul evolution. And here comes someone saying, I could liberate you from all of that. Why labor? Why do all of that?
Why work?
There's other ways, there's shortcuts. And you can give a brilliant intellectual argument on why would you want to pay back your karma? We're
superior.
Yes. We can go around, superior. We can dodge the karma.
We don't have to do that.
So it sounds familiar.
The wars of liberation sound very familiar.
Right.
Well, basically, this was a new breakthrough. I mean, in the eyes of those who he was appealing to, in the eyes of those who succumbed, because Lucifer was actually telling them, look, I'm liberating you on this planet or on Earth from the oppressive rule of the spiritual hierarchy. I'm liberating you from the chain of command, from the gods, the cosmic beings, from God himself. I'm liberating you. You no longer need to be subservient to this God.
So he becomes like the hero.
He's a hero.
He's a hero and a liberator.
And
thank God for the coming of this brilliant being and all of his followers.
Right.
Where I no longer perhaps have to work out my karma. Maybe there's another way.
Maybe there is no karma.
Right.
I mean, he used different techniques. What he was doing was rebelling against the divinely appointed rulers of the universe.
Who got there by their evolution and by their own tests, passing tests.
By passing tests.
Moving forward.
And finally ascended and then had positions of authority, of rule over planets, over solar systems, over galaxies. And this is all discussed in the teachings of the Ascended Masters in great detail, in various publications and so forth. But again, what they actually wanted was anarchy. In other words, the Ascended Masters have told us that the original anarchist was Lucifer himself.
Very interesting
Because
point.
Since he rebelled against the spiritual hierarchy and the lineage of the gurus, who pass down their teaching and their light, and they give you their divine consciousness. They share with you that divine consciousness, which he rebelled against, you see. And at that point, there's no possibility, unless you changed, for the ascension, as you were saying.
Right, right. And he would also throw in there the idea that, why do you have to wait? Why are you waiting on these gurus to give you? I can give you the information right now, whether you're ready for it or not. You don't have to evolve and take the time.
You don't have to pass the initiations.
No,
you don't have to go through the transfiguration. You don't have to go through the crucifixion, which is the Christian terminology. You don't have to go through the resurrection, the ascension. These are all spiritual initiations. Forget it.
Yeah. And that would cause chaos. It would cause people to think about maybe there's a shortcut, a fast way to get ahead.
Yep.
And so you have the Luciferians and the Satans are now, they can do their own thing, and they were freeing, in their view, billions of souls.
They're autonomous. Yeah.
Amazing.
They're freeing billions of souls. Wow. What a great release of freedom.
So now we're at a situation where there's countless planets and sectors of galaxies.
Yeah.
There hasn't been revealed how much of the galaxy.
No, we haven't had that information.
We talked about the Milky Way galaxy that we're in and Andromeda, but we didn't. I didn't want to imply that the entire Andromeda galaxy was taken over.
No.
But there are sectors of the galaxy that were taken over by these billions of souls, by these rebels going throughout these two particular galaxies.
Yeah.
And so again, we're back to the similarity of Star Wars.
Star Wars. And remember, I think we previously mentioned that the writers of science fiction, including the author of Star Wars, was keying into the memory, the ancient memory of these scenarios that the Ascended Masters are bringing to us, and that are partially in the New Testament and the Old Testament.
Right. And they themselves tune into the Akashic Record.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to imply that the Akashic Record is only open to those who are messengers or have contact with ascended beings.
Yeah.
Science fiction writers, many times, can tune into the Akashic Record.
Yes.
It might not be word for word extreme detail, but certainly the scenario is definitely coming from that record.
Yeah, the scenario itself doesn't necessarily mean that all of the characters in Star Wars are historical characters per se, but the idea, the situations, the two sides of the misuse and the use of divine energy, the dark side and the light side. So again, this spread like a cancer. It spread like a virus, this rebellion. And
so he's basically proclaiming that there is no God, that you don't need God, and God's unnecessary.
Exactly.
That's how far he goes.
When it suited him. When it suited him, there was no God.
Right. It would make sense that he would have sometimes incarnations where it's okay to follow a hierarchy in order to get the people to...
As long as you follow our theology and our way and our philosophy, whether it's a philosophy of economics, whether a philosophy of religion and so forth, as long as you follow it, you'll be fine.
Very interesting.
Well, again, we have said that they rejected their hierarchs and gurus. And again, in the 60s, if you remember, we had the quote, God is dead.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are many, many people on earth today. Well, we now know the origin of that.
It's a Luciferian consciousness, is how you would say that.
Consciousness.
It doesn't mean that the people who were saying that were then necessarily Lucifer or
Right.
But that is how it works, is where you tack on to a type of consciousness, a way of thinking, a certain way of intellectualizing anything, where you could, like we said before, you can reason anything out of existence.
Right.
And so, that was the big thing then.
And good souls, souls of light, the children of God, sometimes would go over to the dark side, but unbeknownst to themselves.
And maybe only temporarily.
And many don't,
Right. It doesn't mean that if you spent 1, 2, or 3 or more embodiments in that state of consciousness,
Yeah.
but you're actually, you do have light, and you are not a rebel angel in
No.
embodiment.
No.
You can eventually come out of it.
You can completely come out of it.
And it could take a very short time. It could take
Yes.
a part of one embodiment.
Yeah.
You just lock into something else that reminds you of where your source was from, and you put down the idea that there is no God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever that God is, again,
For you, depending
Right.
upon your religion, and of course, we still have the understanding of the great I Am Presence as being more powerful than all of the fallen ones, which we can call to. So I just wanted to mention that when Lucifer took over some of these planets, some of these worlds became materialized and mechanized because of the fact that they then, after a time in their evolution, actually rejected spirituality completely, but they advanced tremendously in science.
And in materialism.
Materialism, brilliant advancements, but no flame. In other words, no spirituality. So instead of the fusion of science and religion, remember that, they rejected religion, separated the two, and excelled in science without, let's say, the Divine Mother, or without the flame of spirit that is intended to inhabit matter. Spirit inhabits matter and raises it up as we are raised up in all of our bodies and in the soul. But the Luciferian plan was separate them, reject religion, but grow in science. And so some of these worlds advanced in technology to the point that it would astonish us today, actually. It would astonish us today. And then again, on these planets, tremendous spacecraft were created. They did away with the the pull of gravity, and I don't know all the scientific words for how a spacecraft would work.
Well, they were extremely advanced, and I don't think we have the terminology for the mechanisms that they used. But we do know that they were extremely advanced, way beyond than the most advanced thing that you could come up with that we have today.
And some of these spacecraft, and if not all of them, actually were able to navigate in the physical plane, the astral plane, and the mental plane. They were not confined only to the physical. That's why some people who see UFOs say, "Oh, there it is, and now it's disappeared." Because they can go into an astral dimension, and come back and forth. And of course, in the 1940s, these became very popular. Because they had the understanding of the Greys, and the so-called
the Roswell
Greys.
incident.
The Roswell incident
was a big deal.
Yeah.
But we're going to clarify this as time goes on. But we don't want to have people thinking that as soon as we say the term UFOs or use that term, that we're meaning the famous Greys that you see with the big eyes and the long arms and that whole thing. It would also, I know that a lot of people know about the Greys. They also know about shape shifters.
Yes.
And they know about, reptilians.
Yes.
And what the thing that they don't talk about is whether or not they reincarnate.
Interesting.
This makes all the difference in the world.
That's right.
There's a lot of talk about
that. That up.
Yeah. Now, because if they're able to reincarnate, and they're here for an embodiment or however long, they live, they're subject to the laws that are here on this planet. And just because they pass from the screen of life does not mean that they can come back into embodiment.
Yes.
So it's that whole idea of what you were saying before, that in the heaven world, there's nothing wrong with having a balance of spirit and science.
Yes.
But they're actually the two pillars that should be woven together, that there is science in heaven. There's a tremendous science that is used. And spacecraft in and of itself is not necessarily bad if someone needs a craft to move throughout the galaxies, but the people in the craft are all spiritual beings makes a huge difference than if you are not, and that you are of the material creation and you are in the denial of anything beyond yourself.
Right, right. And that's where these various planets and people who look very human and have advanced their brains, now without the spirit, mind you, advanced their brains to such an extent that, again, they sometimes are even being worshipped as gods, but they are not. They are part of this, and I'm talking about this specific group now,
Right.
that when Lucifer took them over, they advanced in technology, but not in spirit, not in spirituality. Did you want to say anything more about
No.
the shapeshifters? Or
No. We'll get back. We're going to get back to that when in an episode coming up here. We're going to get more detailed about UFOs. We're not done with them at all yet. But we know that spacecraft were known in ancient times.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, they were known in Sumeria, Babylon, India, South America, Mexico. They were known and used on this planet for over 1 million years. And the question is, where do they come from? Who is manning them? Well, they came from these planets that had lost, most of them, that had lost the contact with spirit. That doesn't mean that there were spacecraft that were from, quote, good planets, but not ascended. But most of the situations that we've seen on Earth in the past have been the exploiters, I would say.
Right.
Those who exploited Earth's resources, those who wanted to manipulate genetically the people of Earth and other planets.
Right.
That had no good aim, no good purpose to them. So the fallen ones still use spacecraft, now in an attempt to take over the planet Earth. But the point is, they have not been totally successful.
Right, especially as time goes on, as we were saying, that this fall goes back tens of millions of years. And as that time goes on, they lose their momentum of spirituality that they had. So their momentum that they fell with, you fall with, say, this much momentum. But as time goes on, that momentum is being used up. So I'm just pointing to the fact that why they would have to use spacecraft. That's very popular today. It has been.
Yes.
Everyone knows that there's something out there, whether they want to admit it or not. Whether the 1940 Roswell thing happened or not, there is and was going to be and will continue to be these kinds of sightings. You've talked to people about the existence of UFOs before. We all have done that, right?
I've talked to people about UFOs, and this guy was saying, I was speaking to someone, and this guy did not believe in UFOs at all, and he tried to convince me that there was no UFOs, there was no people from other planets, there was no spacecraft, so-called flying saucers. So he says to me, I know there's no such thing as UFOs. You know there's no such thing as UFOs.
All right.
Right? So I said to him, but do the UFOs know?
Okay. So that's if they believe they're in their existence, then they're around.
They believe that they exist, they must exist.
There's a bit of intellectualism for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, despite their advanced technology, they don't really have the power they think they have in those who understand themselves as the sons or the daughters of God, of coming from a God source.
Yes.
Whatever that is, whether you call that God source that you are, in the image of Brahma, if you're in the image of God, that you have some understanding and belief system in a power that is greater than just materialism and intellectualism. They don't really have the power they think they have, do they?
No, they don't. They don't have the power. If someone calls upon God, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Allah, the various Hebrew names for God, El Elyon, the I Am presence, the I Am that I am. Once that protective shield of the so-called tube of light, which the Ascended Masters teach, is around you firmly, they can't get through.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get through. If you really have called and invoked by the spoken word, you are God's source, whatever name.
Because again, they only have power over those 4 planes of matter that you were talking about before. Again, the physical plane, the emotional plane or astral plane, the mental plane, and the lower etheric.
Yes.
But your connection to the God source is beyond that.
Way beyond that.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always a way out of these things.
Thank heaven.
Yeah. So let's continue a little bit more with this story. We're going to get back to Lucifer, and I think maybe we'll carry this over to the next episode, because we're going to be talking about Lucifer, taught by his hierarchs, and the secrets of the creation of life before he fell. So I think we will continue the story in the next episode and conclude here. And please join us on the next episode when we continue the story of how the Luciferians cloned themselves, false creations, and the whole secret of creations on this planet and other planets.
Exciting.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.